This is the story of the origin of the Grateful Dead Dancing Bears, with information told by Owsley Stanley. In 1973, the Grateful Dead released an album known as The History of the Grateful Dead Volume 1, Bear's Choice. The album was released by Warner Brothers and was the Grateful Dead's fourth live album. The album featured highlights from a Dead run at the Fillmore East on February 13th and 14th in New York City. The album is commonly known as Bear's Choice, named after the Dead sound man Owsley Stanley. The album peaked on the Billboard 200 and peaked at number 60 on the list. This album featured a new logo on the back of the cover, which would be known to most as the Dancing Bears. Many people tend to think that Owsley is directly responsible for creating the Dead's logos alone. Although this has been common thought, Bob Thomas is often a figure who many times goes unnamed in the band's history. Bob Thomas was a graphic artist based in Los Angeles who was an old friend of Owsley's. In 1969, Owsley was living in Oakland and working as the sound man for the Grateful Dead. That year, Bob Thomas had relocated to the Bay Area and was looking for a place to live. At the time, the Grateful Dead were renting a warehouse in Novato, California to store their equipment, which had a problem with constant break-ins. Owsley had allowed Bob to start living at the warehouse, killing two birds with one stone. Although it's not necessarily known exactly why the bears were created, this is the origin story of how they were. The origin of the logo came from a generic bear that was a 36-point type slug on a printer that Bob had found. It was a standardized figure from a printer's type font, but the exact font was unknown to Owsley. The generic logo was used by many other companies that came to be near the same time period. A logo that is almost an exact copy of the original generic bear from the printer is used by Bear Wheel Alignment. Bob made significant changes to the original type slug when he derived it for the album, in order to create a logo that was truly its own to the Grateful Dead. There were several aspects to the logo that confused Owsley as far as what the fans had believed it to be. The first example that Bear tended to point out was the fact that many people thought that the stylized fur around the bear's neck was supposed to be some kind of bib or exterior piece of clothing. The second misconception that tended to bother Bear was the fact that people saw the bears as dancing, which gives a large misconception even in the name. The truth is that the bears are supposed to be stylized in a way that make them look as though they are marching. Therefore, the bears were never supposed to be dancing bears. In conclusion, the Dancing Bears, or Marching Bears, were created by Bob Thomas as a new logo for the Grateful Dead. The bears have stood the test of time, being a strong visual that is recognized by people who may not even know the music of the Grateful Dead. I find it astonishing how impactful the logos of the Grateful Dead have been within popular culture, and have a strong feeling that they're not going anywhere anytime soon. Much of this information came from Owsley Stanley himself, as he is included on his website, thebear.org. I find it important to have the facts stated correctly when presenting a part of history, and will link Owsley's website in the description below. I'd like to take a moment to mention the Owsley Stanley Foundation and ask for your support in their direction. The Owsley Stanley Foundation is ran by Bear's family and is in the process of releasing many of Bear's unheard sound recordings of some of the first gigs with legendary artists. I'll list their website below for you to consider making a purchase or finding a way to support them in order to release more of Bear's treasures into the world. If you enjoyed this video, or learned something new, please consider liking and subscribing. I plan on making more videos covering aspects of Grateful Dead and psychedelic history, and any help in spreading the knowledge is greatly appreciated. If there's a topic you'd like me to cover, or any other piece you'd like to state, post a comment below and I'll be sure to respond when I can. I plan on releasing another video soon covering the origin of the Stele. I'm new to making videos and will continue to make them better as time comes. Thanks for taking the time to watch this video, and remember, stay grateful.